Hi, my name is Tim Keeley, and I speak over 30 languages. Over the past 48 years, I have traveled to 99 countries around the globe, studying at 8 universities in undergraduate programs, 3 master's degree programs, and for earning a PhD, as well as for work and travel. My adventures have taken me from the depths of the Amazon basin to the heights of the Himalayas here in Nepal. During those years, I experienced many historical events, such as meeting ex-Nazis in Paraguay, 2 weeks later being thrown in jail in Ushuaia during the country's dirty war, where the military junta murdered many of the country's youth as part of Operation Condor. I was studying in Poland from 1979 to 1981, during which time Solidarność was born, leading to the collapse of communism in Eastern Europe.
Mamy wreszcie niezależne, samorządne związki zawodowe. Mamy prawo do strajku.
I traded black market goods bought in the DDR with East German marks obtained at a 5-to-1 exchange rate for the West German mark in Berlin, all before the wall collapsed. I was riding in a train in the Azerbaijan countryside on November 10th, 1982, when suddenly the train stopped, and it was announced that Brezhnev had died. In 1981, the previous year, I was traveling around China after the Cultural Revolution. I remember in Shanghai, just standing on the corner, people would surround me and some would be brave enough to come touch my hair. It was so unusual to see a Westerner. I made my first trip to Tibet in 1984, when it first opened to Western tourism.
If you wonder why they're staring at me. Still there are few Europeans or Americans coming to Tibet, but
Weißt du, wir können unsere Schritte auch machen. Muss ich meinen Schwenk zurück machen?
A few thousand people.
In 1985, I accompanied a doctor in Pakistan to the border with Afghanistan and rubbed shoulders with the Mujahideen. He had been hired by the CIA to assist them. It is the experience inside a culture that delivers a deep understanding of the political, historical, and social relationships. And the local language is a passport into that world.
At 5,000 meters in Tibet.
As a cross-cultural management professor in Japan, China, and Thailand over the past 32 years, I have shared my research findings and insights into cultural adaptation and foreign language acquisition in numerous publications, which have ranked in the top 2% in academia EDU and in YouTube video presentations. Now, for example, actually, Japanese is bigger than English. As well as now in my own blog post and YouTube channel. You may wonder, what has motivated me to learn so many languages? In my memoir, A Life in 30 Languages, I provide the answer and much more. The thesis of my memoir is best summarized by the passage, "Language is a tool that directs our attention to various aspects of reality. Take an intense journey through languages and cultures, and you will soon become aware of the extent to which our perception and interpretation of phenomena are deeply embedded in our linguistic and cultural experiences. I am publishing the book in dozens of single language editions, as well as dual language combinations, which can provide interesting and stimulating comprehensible input for learners at all levels. In addition, I have professional narrators creating audiobooks to help with the learning process.
Ricordo di averle ascoltate per la prima volta da una radio a onde corte, all'età di circa 6 anni. Amavo il
I hope
suono
my
di quelle
book
lingue
will
diverse.
inspire many people to step out of their comfort zone, learn a new language, explore a new culture, travel the world. Learning languages, travel, understanding cultures, communing with people all over the world can lead to a very fruitful and exciting life. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, so a little bit more background. So actually, a few of these slides are from a presentation I did once. So basically, I grew up in a monolingual family in Florida, but I was surrounded by a lot of Cubans. About 30% of the population of my area is Cuban. And we all had to study Spanish at first one time a week at age 6. But I got into it. My brothers and sisters don't speak Spanish, but I spoke pretty well by the age 13, 14. And so I was creating already 2 identities. So by the time I was 18, I was quite fluent in Spanish, and then I went to Colombia. Okay, so this is just kind of a quick shot at the languages I've experienced in my life. Do I speak all of them fluently? No way, okay. So the larger ones are the ones I've spent the most time either reading, studying, speaking, interacting. And you'll see that Japanese is the same size or bigger than English. That's because I've lived in Japan for 42 years, okay? And that's leaves 25 of the first years. I'm 67 now. So the first 25 years were in the Western world, and the last 42 years living in the East. And for 32 years, I've lectured in Japanese about cross-cultural management with Japanese, Chinese, Thai, and Vietnamese, mainly Japanese. So my usage, spoken language, the greatest is Japanese, okay, on an hourly basis. But I think definitely, as you know, your strongest language tends to be your mother tongue, yeah? Okay, so, right, so how did this all happen from a monolingual family? Well, I just had a passion for languages and cultures that developed at a very young age, because I have memories of around age 6, I would listen to shortwave radio and just love the sound of languages. Of course, I couldn't understand what they're saying. It's just like music to my ears. And I would just go one to the next, one to the next, you know. This is a shortwave radio. I once had somebody checking my Spanish, and they took away the onda corta. They said, oh, it just sounds like a radio. No. Young people, this is how we didn't have internet back then. This is how you listen to a foreign language. You had to have one of these. Okay. So, also, National Geographic, not the one online. Okay. And so it was we're in Central Florida. It's age 9 that we moved to South Florida. And so that's why I was surrounded by Spanish. Okay, so I've been fortunate enough to go around the world. So I've counted 99 so far. I don't know what 100 is going to be. When I was diving in Malaysia last year at the island of Borneo, I thought about going to Brunei, but I decided not to. I didn't want to make Brunei my 100th country. No, that wasn't the main reason. But sorry for anybody from Brunei. Yeah, so this is what it looks like on a map. I went to university in the U.S., Colombia, Switzerland, Poland, Japan, and Australia. And I worked in USA, Germany, China, Taiwan, and Thailand. So the China, Taiwan, Taiwan is as a professor. Okay, so I guess this is where I started my polyglot journey. Universidad de los Andes, where I studied French and Portuguese and German in Spanish. And I found that extremely useful because it was easier to not think in my mother tongue, yeah, and not have that reference. And also I learned a lot more about Spanish because all the teachers always comparing the language. It was especially useful in the case of Portuguese, which are similar, because the teacher, Brazilian teacher, was talking about it in Portuguese. Well, mainly she spoke Portuguese because most of us could understand quite well pretty soon after we started. Okay, and then in Colombia, so I studied at those places, but I couldn't imagine the world that we have right now. Well, actually, I did imagine it in 1977, the next year when I was living in Switzerland. I had this vision, like a dream, that someday I'd be able to walk into a room and there would be a big screen, and I could sit down and I could ask the screen anything I wanted, and it would answer back with film and references and such. Sound familiar? But what shocks me is that people who grow up with it don't appreciate it. They get lazy, mentally lazy, okay? They didn't have to go through all the steps that we had to go back then. I would sit in my room and mainly concentrate on that time, French, German, Portuguese just at the Institute, but mainly French and German at that time. And this is what I had, lingophone. You had to have the record player in order to get the sound, right? So you couldn't walk around studying. So I had to sit there. So for discipline, I said, okay, you cannot have a sip of tea or sip of water until you finish this page. And I forced myself to learn as fast as I could. And then I was back at University of Florida. And wow, this is a miracle. This is really high tech, yeah? You could walk around and study a language. It's amazing. But can you imagine having something that had video too? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, why is that important? Because we need comprehensible input. I mean, it'd be great if this worked, you know? You could just put the language right into your head, yeah? This Chinese boys figured it out. The others are just, but he said, nah, I just open the page and puts it right into my head. Okay, so I'm sure you've heard about the importance of comprehensible inputs. Stephen Krashen, what he says about it. Okay, so it's really a key concept in foreign language acquisition. And what we need is these meaningful experiences in the language for us to remember and be able to dip into my experiences. When I'm at a polyglot conference like this and we're switching languages, if it's a language I haven't spoken in a while, I try to think back at the time when I was using that language and try to experience it in my mind again. I can't do this one-on-one conversation so easily, but I step back when people are talking, and I try to get into that feeling again, right? So, you know, we need something that's meaningful to us. And to be meaningful to us, we have to understand what's going on, right? So we need to really progress. It's like the ladder effect, as you know, okay? So we need something that's just beyond our reach. So we understand 80% of it, 75, 90, and we just beyond our reach. And then we start, we can make connections and we can infer meaning from the context, and we can gradually internalize those, you know, language structures and vocabulary. So actually, this is how children learn languages. There's a scholar by the name of Tomasello, and he writes about this. I mean, there's many different ideas. You have Chomsky's idea of the language acquisition device, LAD. I think that's useless. Tomasello actually makes sense because he talks about having shared attention with a child. And then they create that. Once they can have shared attention, so between 9 months old to a year and a half old, then they can get the meaning of what you're referring to. Okay, so dual language material. No, for me, it's always so important because it's an invaluable tool for providing that comprehensible input in your target language. So it's the first one I used. Okay, it was published in 1964. I still have this at home, this picture I took, okay? So I still have it after all those years. It traveled with me around the world. It's just, I've had many different ones, but this one I still have saved. Okay, so for me, I found it to be an invaluable resource because if I have a good translation right in front of me, then I don't have to, what I would call, waste time looking up words. I can stay with the story, stay with the flow. Now you can argue that, okay, you learn more by looking at the word and this and that. Yeah, what I'll do is first understand the story, then go back and look at individual words, right? For me, that's much more enjoyable. I first want we remember a narrative, so I first want to understand what's going on. And if I don't understand, I just refer to the target or to the base language, which could be your mother tongue or a language you know well enough to support the language that you're trying to read. Okay, so before the internet age, there were some difficulties studying certain languages. One example is Indonesian, Malaysian. My first trip to Indonesia, right in Indonesia and Malaysia in 1981, I flew from Warsaw to Bangkok. Okay, it's when I left Poland. And then down, so first time in Asia, first time I started studying Thai, first time I started studying Malay and Indonesian. So what problem did I run into? This one. You're reading something and you run into Mengajar, Pelajaran. So Mengajar, so I go to M in my dictionary. It's not here, it must not be a common word. No, right? So in the Indonesian dictionary, at that time for sure, okay, physical dictionary, you have to know the root is ajar. And then you find it and all the other ones are listed below ajar. Okay? So it's not easy. Sometimes there are sound changes, so makes it difficult to know what the root is. You have the same in Arabic, Hebrew, Amharic, where they have 3 base letters. Sometimes the only dual language material I could find was the Bible. Okay, so again, we're not talking about online. The online doesn't exist yet. So you're in a foreign country, like in South Africa, I said, oh my God, is it Afrikaans, is it Engels? Oh, ich kann nicht lesen. Okay, so I found my first Bible in Afrikaans and English is how you say it in English. Okay, thank you. Okay, so then I started to create my own. And this is more recent times. Okay, I decided when the Polyglot Gathering was first in Bratislava, I said, okay, I need to learn Slovak. Avi prvýkrát, keď čul som kohos hovoriť slovenčinu, veľmi dobre rozumel som, ale nemôgol opovedať slovenčinu. Okay, I could understand Slovene the first time I heard it, but I couldn't answer. I'm Slovak, Slovene too. Actually, Slovene is the first Slavic language I studied, but I switched to Serbo-Croatian after that. So I said, okay, I'm going to learn it well. So I just started writing about my life. And then I had an exchange partner. And let's see.
Keď som mal 12 rokov, chodil som na lekcie španielčiny a začal som študovať na univerzite skôr vo veku 16 rokov. Keď som mal 18, rozhodol som sa študovať v Kolumbii. Začal som chodiť na univerzitu a študoval som tam rok. V Kolumbii som študoval portugalčinu, francúzštinu a nemčinu. Bolo to užitočné študovať cudzie jazyky v španielčine. Bolo to v čase môjho života, kedy som si dal za cieľ naučiť sa hlavné svetové jazyky. To znamená jazyky, ktorými hovorí aspoň 50 miliónov ľudí. Odvtedy prešlo 42 rokov a ja nie som ďaleko od dosiahnutia tohto cieľa a som stále na ceste, keď sa učím niekoľko menej známych, menej rozšírených jazykov.
Okay, now it's been 48 years. So this became part of my book. This is the genesis of my book. I'm starting to think, I should just write a book. I'd make it into a dual readers, all right? So yeah, I did that. I was age in Colombia when I was studying Portuguese, French, and German and Spanish. I said, hey, this is pretty cool. And if you really dedicate yourself, you're surprised how quickly you can do it. So I'm just going to go ahead and learn all the major languages of the world. Where am I at? I have to work on my Bengali and improve my Hindi, and I have most of the major ones now. So I calculate I can speak with 72% of the world in their mother tongue or another official language in the country where they live. So, because I love Greek. I love the sound of Greek. And I don't know how many people study Greek? How many people love the sound of Greek, at least? Okay. Okay, so that's, doing that, creating my own, it gave me the idea to write my memoir. And since I had that in mind, I said, all right, so the first chapters are short. The first 30 chapters are between 2, 4, 6 pages. I wrote 8 here, but it's a little bit shorter. Because I wanted the reader to have a feeling of accomplishment quite early, right? Oh, I finished the chapter, And so then gradually, they're short. The final 30 can go between 5 and 10 pages in a language. When you write in Chinese, it's shorter though. Same content though. So also I thought about, okay, should I write it so it's simple? No. I should write prose with the richest vocabulary, descriptive vocabulary that doesn't sound overdone, so that people can enrich their vocabulary. Like if I was from Valley Talk, and I started writing like that, you think you'd learn a lot? No. All right. So I didn't want to talk like that. I wanted to use very descriptive words, etc. Of course, nobody attends. Oh, wow, running out of time. I didn't realize that. Okay, so the benefits of using dual languages. So you have your native or strong language right next to your target language. And for vocabulary acquisition, you learn it in context, which is really important because and also in the case of narratives, which it aids in retention and understanding. So our brains are wired for story, okay? So the memory champions of the world, how do they memorize a random set of cards? Well, each card is a certain character, for example, and then they just create a story of what's happening, okay? Like the King of Hearts is person A, and then meets the Queen of Spades, and that's and so on. So they just run through a story in their head. They have the whole story, so they only have to remember the story, and then everything comes out. So our brains function by narratives. I remember one time after I had arrived in Japan, I studied Japanese actually in Poznan, so I could converse when I first got to Japan in 1981, and I was watching Anje Vaide movie with Japanese. And after the movie, I turned around and started talking about the movie. I was speaking Polish, and she looked at me like this. I said, oh, I was speaking Polish. Okay, I had to speak Japanese. Okay, no Japanese would come. Look, there's the table. Okay, table. No. The TV. No. So the words that first came to me were from English, so it didn't help. And finally, she said something, and it just pulled the string, and then I could speak Japanese again. Okay, so also with grammar and syntax. I'm going to speed this up a little. I didn't realize we had that time constraint there. Okay, so by comparing the syntax between two languages, this would be quite important between similar languages too, like the Romance language, the Slavic languages, etc. So you can identify certain patterns and how they're the same and how they are different. This is extremely important, the reading fluency. Okay, so we really need to read extensively in our target language to get good at it, especially if it's written in a different alphabet. So let's say you're learning Russian, you learn Cyrillic or Greek, or God bless you, Japanese or Chinese, okay, or Thai, or Tibetan, and you to get used to reading it, okay? So you need that constant practice. You make the connections. Okay, you have this bridging effect. All right, then, so of course it offers contextualized learning. All right, that's back to you're learning a story. It's best to learn our words in context because they give example sentences. If I'm going to learn a new word, I always try to find various sample sentences. And it builds your confidence because, okay, you can say to yourself, I'm not going to look at the English or whatever language you're using as your base understood language, your strong language. I'm just going to look at the target language right now, or I'm just going to listen to the target language right now, etc. But then it reduces your anxiety about when you're reading and, I don't understand that, and you have to look it up. And no, you can always first understand, then read in your target language with ease. And then it's actually quite fun. You say, even you can do it. You can do it even if let's say you're a Spanish speaker and you're using the Italian. Easy. Once you see Spanish and Italian together, you'll be reading the story quite easily after a while, okay? Because they're similar. But even non-similar languages, even if you've only studied for 40 hours, you can still use the same kind of material. You just do it differently. Okay, so for example, I just had here, all right, an example like in Italian and Spanish, okay? So you can go through it and see. Okay, so in summary, it's an excellent source of, hopefully in case of my book, compelling, interesting, exciting narrative. All right, so really a balanced and accessible approach to learning languages. And it's a great support, for beginners. Okay, so for example, this is what dual reader looks like. I don't know if the sound's gonna play with this. If not, I have to, no. Okay, wait, that one here. Yeah, that's the final. You have to come off here and go to, let me see. Okay, I have to play it here.
My interest in foreign languages started at a very young age. I have memories of listening to foreign languages on a shortwave radio from around the age of 6. I just loved the sound of the different languages. It was like music to my ears. At the same time, I was dying to understand what was being said. Did they perhaps know something the listeners didn't? I experienced a growing desire to learn several foreign languages and discover the secrets they veiled.
Il mio interesse per le lingue straniere è iniziato in tenera età. Ricordo di averle ascoltate per la prima volta da una radio a onde corte, all'età di circa 6 anni. Amavo il suono di quelle lingue diverse. Era musica per le mie orecchie. Allo stesso tempo, morivo dalla voglia di capire cosa veniva detto. Sapevano forse qualcosa che gli ascoltatori non percepivano? Un desiderio è cresciuto in me, che mi ha posto l'obiettivo di imparare diverse lingue straniere e scoprire i segreti che custodivano.
我在年纪很小的时候就对外国语言产生兴趣。记得大约从6岁开始，在短波收音机上听着各种外语，我就是喜爱这些不同语言的声音，就好像在听音乐一样。与此同时，我也渴望了解述说的内容。他们可能懂一些听众不知道的事情吗？我越发向往学习几种外语，并探索其中隐藏的奥秘。
Unit 2. How far is it to Kathmandu, brother?
Part number 3.
Okay, this is, wait a second, this is the Poly coming in here. Okay, so we'll just finish up right here. Okay, so during this conference here, I thought if you're interested right now, there's only English with the audio, Italian with the audio, and Chinese traditional. The next few days, I'll put in Chinese simplified, and the audio I just finished doing right before here, putting it in loading it up, but I haven't made the connection yet. So the next few days, Chinese will be available too. Let me just now I'm really losing my voice. Let me just take you to your site and show you what it looks like. Okay, so this is my site, and you can see the various languages here. So my goal is at least 30 languages. In languages, so who's translating? Various people. Sometimes I translate and then I hand it over to editors, professional editors, or good friends or native speakers. Sometimes other people translate for me. Shout out to Rita Nassif, who from Easy French on the YouTube, if you've ever watched that. She said, no, let me translate it. I said, okay, so I started talking about how I reward the translator. She said, no, just let me translate it. She finished in 6 weeks. We just finished right before we now she's going over it and looking at the other ones. So, yeah, so my goal is to have at least 30 languages out there that people can use to study that target language or study English, for example, or any other. I'm going to make many combinations. So even if 10 languages, there will be like over 100 books, because I have Chinese, Italian, for example. Okay, I just make all those combinations. And then on Polyglot Dreams.com, I also have here my blogs, which a lot of them are from my academic writings. I'm trying to make it more accessible, not so academic-wise. And I wrote 20 blogs within 2 weeks. Now I'm just putting them in. I was able to do it quicker because I have a lot of material in my head and already written. Okay, I think that's enough. We go for questions now. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming early. How long did it take you to develop the dual language? Okay, so so first I wrote, you saw the story how I came to start to write the memoir. It was from creating like in Slovak and Greek. And then COVID was a blessing in that sense, because I just put all my lessons online for the last 3 years of my academic career. Now I'm retired, had to retire at 67. I had all free time, so I spent hours and hours. Then I hired a professional editor, and she was interested. She was from, I interviewed around 20 editors, and the one I chose, I gave them the first chapter, and they all gave me input. I accepted my editors. Every single comment was great, and then I found out why. She's South African, and her mother tongue is Afrikaans and English. Okay, so she grew up in a multilingual society. She understood what I was saying. Yeah, and so okay. After that, then I just started the translations. Various people helped me, as I mentioned. Some people actually get involved and do the translation. Okay, so I need a lot of help with this project, still with more languages. It can be just that, okay, I'll read some chapters in my, whatever your native. I prefer that get input from native speakers or language you're really, really confident in, okay? But for editing, I put it, I share some chapters in Google Docs and people give me input. So if you're interested, please just send me a message. Tim Keeley and polyglotdreams.com. You can find me there. I'll see it. Okay. I want to increase, if possible, I want to increase the languages. So first, I'm going after the ones I know well, because it's easier for me to work with it. But I already got somebody said, would you like me to translate into Hebrew? And we're having that discussion. My Hebrew is, not even close to understanding what I'm writing now. So it may be some languages come up before. The Romance languages, Italian is my weakest, but I just happen to have people who cooperated in Italian with me. So it went faster than Spanish and Portuguese, and then French, I started late, but okay, somebody offered. So yeah, I'm totally open to all kinds of cooperation to increase, the number of languages. Yeah, it's 2 languages next to other. I do paragraph by paragraph, not like this. Only in the printed form can you do that, or PDF, right? Because when you go to EPUB, the next page, even if you could see it, it depends on how big the letters are you're reading. So I do paragraph by paragraph. What do you think of intensive course? I love intensive courses. Yeah. Yeah, you can get an immediate boost. I think that was definitely the case for me in many languages. I think Polish especially. And so I put out a post. I don't know if you've seen the post I had about lucid dreaming. So in Poland, it happened that I was, after like 1 month of intensive study and in the dorm, always speaking Polish. I had a dream, a lucid dream. In my dream, I saw that the Polish speakers were speaking like native speakers. And I was struggling. So, okay, they're native speakers. Wait. So I'm a lucid dreamer, so I'm conscious what's going on. So wait a second. I'm creating them. My mind can do that. And I came out of the dream, and then I started debating. Yeah, well, maybe you think they sound like natives, so I allow myself to go into the dream again. I let it flow. No, I see a marked difference of how they speak and how I spoke. Of course, their ability, what I can create is limited to the amount of input I had and what my mind has understood. But the point is identity. If I identify myself as awake, as that learner, instead of a competent native, competent, authentic speaker of the language, I need to create that identity, have that confidence, and go for it. Because my mind can already start to do that. Your mind can already start to do that. After so many languages, you ever struggle forgetting your English? Momentarily. Just like I explained, when I was in Japan and I'd watched the movie in Polish, I couldn't speak Japanese, even though my Japanese was at least intermediate at that time and spoken. It wouldn't come to me momentarily. We forget a name, then it comes to us, right? I rarely use the word like forget and mean it like forget, it's gone, it's erased, it's deleted, It's no longer on the hard drive. No, it's there. Unless you have brain damage, I believe it's there. You can see it with Alzheimer, all these things come back, No, I don't have Alzheimer yet, all right? So supposedly, the more language you learn, you'll put it off, okay? 67 now, hopefully if I live to 80, I'll still be thinking like I do now, which I do forget what I did just 10 minutes ago. But everybody does. Did I lock the door? Did not lock. Did I turn off the stove? Things like that, What is the hardest one? Well, the hardest language, as you know, depends on what you know, right? So for a Pole, Esperanto is not the easiest language in the world. It's either Slovak, Czech, or Ukrainian, all right? For a Spanish speaker, what's the easiest? Who knows? Portuguese, right? So it depends on what you know. Okay, but I divide this into 3 areas. I say writing, pronunciation, and grammar. So writing, number 1, Japanese, harder than Chinese, has many readings of character. Japanese, Chinese, 3rd, Tibetan, okay? And you can look into why that's so. So pronunciation, okay, the hardest is Zulu, but I don't speak Zulu that well. So hardest of a language I'm very fluent in is Tiếng Việt, okay? Pháp Ám của Tiếng Việt khổ lắm. So I just said that Vietnamese pronunciation is very difficult. And then you have to learn north and south. Like, what time is it in the north? Bây giờ mấy giờ rồi? In the south, bây giờ mấy giờ rồi? Okay, they sound quite different. So that's, I would say, Vietnamese. I thought Chinese was hardest in tones, and I learned Thai. Thai is harder. Oh, then I learned Vietnamese. Ooh. So, rare language, yes. Pardon? Oh, I didn't. Oh, grammar. I'm sorry. Grammar. What do you think I'm going to say? Hungarian. Magyar. Okay. But my Hungarian is not even really intermediate level, just below there. Okay. So of a language I know well, język polski. No, oczywiście. No, jest trudniejszy innych słowiańskich język, tak? Yeah, it is. Okay, I could argue with that and get into an explanation why I say that. Okay, now you may say Finnish is on and on and on. I don't know. I don't speak Finnish. Okay, the rare languages. Think about the grammar. The rare languages. Yeah, I just came here from Tibet. Nepal. So I've been trekking in Nepal, in Sikkim in the Indian side, and on the other side in Ladakh and Tibet for the last 30 years. And so in the last 10 years, I've been focusing on Tibetan languages, Tibetan and Tamang and Sherpa and Ladakhi. And I tell you, it's such a gas. I'm trekking to Everest Base Camp at that time, and I meet, Tamang is widely spoken, 5% of the population, and I meet guides and such who speak Tamang, and I start speaking to them in Tamang. They just fall over. They take out the cameras and film me, okay? They said, or one guy called his wife and said, talk to her, you know? Okay, so it's really rewarding to learn a language like that. And it wasn't easy. You can only get like PhD theses, you know, for input. But luckily, I had students in Japan. I had many Nepali students. So for the last 12 years, I've been speaking Nepali also in Japan. And Tamang, I had one student sat down with me, and we created my trekking guide in Tamang. Okay, so all the phrases, I tend to learn languages according to the context in which I will use them, which I advise you to do. So I'm trekking, so I need to know, is it uphill, downhill, how far is it, and is it slippery, and on, all those things. What are the main markers you see on the trail, things like that. Is that it? Anything else?
Okay, so that's all the question because we've actually run out of time. I'm sorry. No, we're already wrapped up with the questions. So that's all.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.